Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 10th night of these live meditation sessions. I'm Zainab, and I'm really happy to be here and connecting with you. To give everyone a moment to join us, I'll invite you to close your eyes for just a moment here and just notice how you're doing in this moment. And to maybe take a breath and to fully arrive. And then we will get started. So, what I want to share with you tonight is a few words on self-compassion, which is really an important practice, especially to be doing right now. This past Sunday, I was talking to one of my really close friends, and she on the phone checked in with me first if she could share a little bit about what was going on for her. And then she started talking, and really there has been already a lot of things ongoing in her life prior to the pandemic. She has been challenged by many different things in many different areas of her life, including work life, family life, love life, logistical things in life. And it sounded like on the phone, as she was talking, that this pandemic really added a huge constraint on the existing conditions and really deepened some of the problems. And I could really make a list in my head of everything that was really difficult and challenging that she was talking about. And she came to the end of it, and I got this sense from her that she had this belief, even though she wasn't saying it this way, that she should be fine, or that this should not be challenging for her. And I realized this, and I asked her if this was what she believed, that she should not be suffering, that she should be at ease, or she should be, as we sometimes say, I should have a handle on this. If she had this belief that she should have a handle on this. And she shared with me that she did think this way, that she felt like she was so much more privileged than many other people in the world, and so she should not be complaining. And what we know is that compassion is a really important step in healing, in health, and in managing our stress. I was also, since Sunday, thinking about everything that I have been challenged by. And I think the past 10 days, in an effort of really keeping a positive mindset, maybe I was even leaning a little too much on the gratitude side. And the past few days, I kind of checked in with myself and noticed all those things that were really difficult for me. And I think I am still processing all of this. But for example, I'm from Turkey, and I am quite concerned about what will happen in Turkey, and what will happen especially in countries that were already poor after the pandemic. And I'm also concerned about, clearly, as you all are, many people that I love dearly, friends and family, who are either sick, or they have immune system problems, or they're old, or they're vulnerable in other ways. And just the other day, going to the supermarket with my partner, and in the supermarket, you're buying groceries, but you kind of have this feeling that the people that are there with you are a danger, or like you should be away from them, or this sense of that maybe you're competing for limited resources was a difficult moment for me. Or just other adjustments I've had to make in my life due to a reduction in income, or changing the way I work, on what I work. And then there's this thing that we're all experiencing of being quote unquote confined. And I saw a really funny cartoon on New Yorker the other day, where this woman comes in and she's talking to her friends who are sitting in the living room, and she says something like, day 6, couldn't decide between starting to write my novel or my screenplay. So instead, I ate 3 boxes of mac and cheese and then lay on the floor panicking. So I think we're all experiencing this on one level or another level. I mean, I think the other night I was kind of looking at my apartment at angles I have never looked at it before. So I think we're all challenged in different ways. And I think this belief or this thought that we should have a handle on it, or we should not be challenged, we should not be suffering, we should, because we are privileged or less privileged or more privileged, but we're all as humans going through something together. And so I think it's really important for us to acknowledge that. And tonight, what I want to share with you is a practice. It's going to be a 5-minute meditation. And the reason it's 5 minutes is because it's something that you can easily repeat. So you don't even necessarily need to have an audio guidance for this. The steps are going to be very short. And it's just going to be a moment of putting a hand on your heart and saying, yes, this is difficult. This is difficult for me. And Kristen Neff, I love the way she summarizes what self-compassion is. It's just an awareness of the fact that there is difficulty. And then it's an awareness of the fact that this is human, so the common humanity. And then a kind response. Instead of judging, instead of blaming, instead of saying, get on with it, how can we be kind to ourselves for the fact that we are struggling in that moment? And there are a lot of misconceptions around self-compassion. For example, sometimes we believe that self-compassion is self-pity, whereas a lot of scientific research shows that people who practice self-compassion actually ruminate less and they focus less on themselves. There's a belief that self-compassion is weak, whereas, again, a lot of scientific research shows that people who practice self-compassion are actually stronger, they have better coping mechanisms, and they are more resilient. There might be a belief that if we are self-compassionate, this will undermine our motivation. So because I'm self-compassionate, I will do less things that are good for me. And again, a lot of research shows that self-compassion increases motivation and persistence. And there's a misconception also that it is self-indulgent, or if we are self-compassionate, then we will indulge in things that are not necessarily good for us. And again, a lot of scientific research shows that self-compassion leads to more health behaviors, such as going to the doctor or exercising, which are more difficult things to do, but they're healthier to do. And finally, there's this belief sometimes that self-compassion is selfish. And again, a lot of scientific research shows that self-compassion leads to more giving behavior in relationships. It makes us more giving. And I think intuitively we all know this. Intuitively we all know that we cannot give something we don't have, or if we try to give something we don't have internally for ourselves, it feels a little forced. So really, compassion begins with the self, begins with ourselves. And the last thing I will say before we do the 5-minute practice, which is called a self-compassion break, is a concept called the backdraft. So this is a concept that comes from firemen or firewomen, or people who put out fires, where if there's a fire in a house and they open all the windows and doors, if the firefighters open all the windows and doors, then because there will be more oxygen that goes inside the house, the fire will actually get stronger at first. So in order to, and this is called backdraft, and in order to prevent this backdraft, what firefighters do is they will poke holes in the walls or windows, just enough space to get their hoses in and to get water in, but they will not open all the windows and doors. So Kristen Neff uses this analogy to explain how we can approach self-compassion. Basically, we all have this pathway in our minds, one way or another, where when we are facing a difficulty, we might judge that at first. So when we change that pathway to a kind response and we start saying kind things to ourselves when we are in difficulty, that might at first create a little bit of backdraft, because it might make the sadness deeper, or it might create a lot of emotion. So it's important really to go slow. If you notice this kind of backdraft, you can take a break. It's also important to know that this is part of healing. So when we really notice we were struggling and we give that kind response, and maybe there are a lot of emotions, we can also take that as part of our self-healing. And we can go back to resourcing, finding inner strength, or calling someone we love, or getting a hug, or petting our cat, whatever really helps us feel a little better. So this self-compassion break, and we will begin now, is going to be exploring these 3 steps that I outlined, which are awareness of the suffering and the common humanity and kindness. So with that, let's find a posture in which you feel awake and relaxed. This might be a posture where you are sitting or standing. And taking a few deep breaths. Filling the body up with breath, and then exhaling and letting go. And then at the exhale, really slowing down the exhale and releasing any tension that is not needed, especially in the shoulders. And one last time, inhaling deeply, and as you exhale, arriving to this moment here and now. Now for this self-compassion break, you might just gently notice something that has been difficult for you in the last few days. And again, being careful and not picking something that was overwhelmingly difficult. Maybe something that was a 4 or 5 on a scale of 10. And for this first step of this self-compassion practice, simply becoming aware that this thing was difficult for you, or it is still difficult for you. You might name the emotions that are involved, such as sadness, fear, anger. Welcoming these emotions as best as you can, letting them be there. And then this sense of, and maybe you can whisper these words to yourself, yes, this hurts. I'm suffering in this moment or in this place in my life. And then for the common humanity component, the second step, again, you might just want to say something very simple to yourself, such as, everyone struggles, or everyone is struggling right now. It's normal to feel this way. I'm not alone in this pain. Or you might broaden the perspective a little bit and say, suffering is a part of life. It's just a part of our human existence. And with that, you might remember the third and the final step, which is kindness. So if there is any judgment or blaming that arise in your mind, you can let them be there. This is fine, this is okay. And then you might sense if it's possible to whisper to yourself something that is kind. Maybe putting a hand on your heart or a hand on your belly. And saying something like, you will get through this. Or, I'm here and I'm listening. I see you, I care about you. Or if these phrases feel a little mechanic, you might just set an intention for a kind response. So you might simply say, may I be kind to myself. And in the last moments of this short practice, you might notice if there is anyone or anything that you would like to call on for some extra support and kindness and love. This could be someone you know, someone wise and loving. It can be your future self, your most awakened heart and mind. Or it can be a larger, bigger energy. And just letting this extra support and kindness fill you in this moment of noticing this struggle. So as you can see, this is a really short practice. It's just 5 minutes. And if during the day you don't have this kind of time to formally take 5 minutes to meditate, I'll invite you to just put a hand on your heart or on your belly, or maybe give your left hand a squeeze with your right hand. And just remember the 3 components. So the awareness of the suffering, the struggle, the difficulty, the fact that this is normal, common humanity, that everyone is struggling, especially right now, but really on any given day. And then a kind response, saying something kind to yourself that you would say to your best friend. I will leave you with this for tonight. I hope that the more you practice this, you will observe how we can change the pathways in our minds. Those judgmental and blaming responses we give to ourselves, over time, we can override them with more kind and loving responses. And this kind of self-compassion really helps us be less self-focused, stronger and resilient, and more giving in relationships. So as a way of ending our session tonight, I'll invite you to just close your eyes for a second and notice how you're feeling. If you could describe with one word how you're feeling, what would this word be? And I will invite you to share it with others if you would like. Thank you so much for joining, and see you tomorrow evening for another live meditation session. Please remember to share with your friends and family so that we can extend this circle of people who are practicing with us every evening. And also please remember that all the videos we do are on YouTube, so you can go back to any one of them at any moment. Be well, take care, and see you tomorrow.